All right. One of the things that has been a major learning curve for me the past year and a half is building systems with technology, specifically automation apps and apps that work with automation, and having people help me out. One of the things that entrepreneurs work the hardest at is buying back their time. So and making more money, right? Those two things need to work together. And it's why entrepreneurs and yogipreneurs are willing to pay for things that yoga teachers aren't and able. It's a self-fulfilling cycle. So for example, I know a lot of yoga teachers, they want to teach yoga online and they've got this vision of making all this money and having so many students and everybody just coming and it being amazing. And I'm sure there are people out there who do that. I've had classes like that and, so it's definitely possible. But a lot of those teachers are doing everything themselves, manually. And it's taking a lot of time outside of prepping and teaching, which just compounds the work and makes it even harder to do and easier to burn out. And this seems very weird to the yogipreneur because the yogipreneur recognizes that platforms and systems may cost a little bit more upfront, but in the long term and using the big picture, if you start with those now, because you have to eventually start with them, you can't grow very much without tools and systems online. So you either get them now and speed up that process, or you wait and you eventually figure out that you spent a lot of time doing a lot of manual labor that didn't need to be done. And now you still got to work to figure everything out using systems and make it happen, and then test it, and then develop it further as you get a better understanding of what you've built, right? Like, that takes time and effort, practice and patience, a lot of emotion, a lot of investment, a lot of learning. I've spent days building automations and testing them and all the associated material that needs to go with it. But now I don't touch most of my automations unless I'm upgrading them to do more for me, right? That kind of work buys back my time because the investment I put into it, and from a time perspective, might be several hours over a day or even several days, or sometimes if I'm building a really in-depth system, it might take me a week and a half, 2 weeks. And I'm okay with that because I know it's going to keep paying off. And now I've got this time back. Okay. So what do I do with that? Well, the average person is going to relax or go spend money in some form. One of the transitions that a yogipreneur is going to make in both mindset and action is reinvesting that now freed up time back into building the business, if not more. Because they know that every piece that's built compounds on everything else you've already done. So it makes sense to keep growing. For example, several months after I started offering my course online, one of my students asked if there was an upgrade between the packages. I hadn't thought of it, but I just said yeah, and asked her to book a time with me so that we could discuss it, which she did. And in that time, I built an entire automation package and like landing pages, forms, updated my existing automations to reflect when somebody upgrades their package. I needed to update some spreadsheets and some forms and stuff, all of which I automated. by the time this student came to that call that they had booked, I had upgrade packages of different levels ready to go, functional, and that I had tested. And I put her through the system, everything worked, and not only was I able to help support her more by giving her the solution she was looking for, but I also got paid, and she just recently signed one of her first clients, her first client. Like, that's amazing, you know? So for her to make that investment in my upgrade package, to request it, I said, yes, I have it, and then I went and built it. But since then, I've made a few $1,000s in course upgrades. And that's just students moving from one package of the course to the next package. And all the components of the upgrade, except a few additional private calls with me, can be automated and are no extra work on my part. So that's the first part, right? Having systems that work for you and be willing to invest in those in both time and money. Because what those things are doing, if you invest that time and money up front, the quicker your return comes back. And you want to get that return of your time as quick as possible, because that means that you have it to do something else productive with. So the second area that yogipreneurs focus on is the team. So you can get to a certain level of income by yourself. You might get a couple thousand if you're doing a lot of classes, but you could easily do tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars as a one-person business online. And there are even people out there who run one-person $1 million a year businesses. Okay, no yoga teacher is ever going to touch that doing group classes live, right? Unless you have some other really comprehensive package with it, or you have a huge group of students who show up and pay a monthly fee. But still, do you want to be doing that many asana classes forever? No, that's even if you have the people, it's something you don't want to put your body through for that long, right? Unless you're doing like 1 or 2 classes a week, then maybe it's fine. But the second thing that yogipreneurs do, besides investing their time and money into systems by apps, is by investing in people that they believe in to come on board and help them out. Sorry, you gotta be careful with the bugs here, So for example, you might have an accountant who helps you keep track of your finances. As you get a little bit bigger, you'll probably, I'd say once you start getting around the $100,000 a year mark, maybe even a little bit earlier, you start getting in contact and building relationships with lawyers. You also want a bookkeeper. So those are your 3 primary team members, and then who are professionals that you outsource, right? You don't hire them as employees. And then what you do is you also look at getting an admin, right? Your systems should cover the vast majority of what your business does. Your admin should mostly be there to interact with clients on your behalf, which is great for your professional image, and to help in moderating / managing things like social media, perhaps responding to some homework, checking that systems are working properly, those kinds of things. So I'm at the stage right now where I'm looking at hiring someone to bring their time and management so that they can manage those things that now take up a lot of my time, but are important, So for example, posting to social is important, getting the right cover image is important, or thumbnail. Having those posts go out on a regular basis is important. So I may create the meaty part of the content, but I could hire someone to do the thumbnail or write the descriptions, or I use ChatGPT for that. But I would hire someone just to like have an overview and make sure that it's running. So those are the 4 main people that yogipreneurs will work with as a team. You may also have a sales coach as you get bigger, or a sales rep. That's really good. You can also, especially if you're working with like a group of students on something like a course, I've also hired an external coach and brought him on to do a weekly group call that is in his area of specialty. And that's amazing, because now, like, I've worked out a deal where I get regular private calls with him, and then he also does a regular group call in my course to my students. So the only part of the work that I do for his call is literally go in, turn on the Zoom room, and then transfer the host to my coach. That's it. Then I leave. But my students still benefit, right? They get that extra coach and support. It's someone who can provide more value. And it's great when I'm signing up new students, right? That they get coaching from both myself and my coach on a weekly basis, or well, bi-weekly basis. That's pretty incredible. So do you see how now a yogipreneur can, let me switch hands here, can just do things that an employee yoga teacher or someone who's doing just group classes never could. And so this is why it's so hard to offer increased value and justify premium prices or raising your prices. The other area, so I mean, those like team people, your accountant, your bookkeeper, possibly a lawyer. You may have like a lawyer you just hire on a, part-time by part-time, or like piece of work by piece of work basis. You don't need to wait till 100 grand to get something like that. And your admin, those people run your business, right? So with that, you've bought most of your time back. So for example, automations run most of the business. Those 3 outsourced professionals, they take care of the financial part, the accounting part, tax filing part. That's important. And then your admin just sort of manages your systems and maybe some stuff for social media. Okay, so that's a significant portion of your business being run, you buying back your own time, and having people who can manage parts of your business that you can afford to pay for. And a good yogipreneur will get back to, I'm gonna say work, but I don't mean work. Like when you're a yogipreneur, this stuff isn't work. It's building, it's different. People see work and they think, oh yeah, like I show up at the office and I wear these clothes and I hate going there and all this stuff. Hate the work I do, it's boring and menial. But the yogipreneur, they're constantly growing and expanding what they offer, how good their business is, how they can support their students more, how they can attract more students, how they can work with team members to achieve new things. So it, to the employee, looks like they're always working, which most employees try to avoid, right? But the difference is that employees try to avoid work because they don't like what they're doing and they're not sure of what their mission is. Yogipreneurs, in order to be successful, need to have a mission and a niche that defines the type of work that they do, the people that they help, and the outcomes that they get, right? So it's more energizing and has more enthusiasm when you're the yogipreneur, because you've actually got something bigger than yourself that you're working for, and because you're building systems that scale your level of income without requiring you to do very much more work, you can make more money, which gets put back into buying your time back and learning how you can increase the value of what you offer your people. Like, this just keeps going and going and going. And it's how people who work online can get to 5 figures a month, 6 figures a month, There's probably people out there doing 7 figures a month, but you know, like that just seems impossible, because 7 figures a month or 6 figures a month divided by an hourly rate is more hours required to work than are in a day. So it's just not possible. And this is how systems scale over time. The second part of the team that you hire, once you've maybe you don't have to wait till you step away from your business full time and just do like, you know, the 1 or 2% that you need to do to actually run it. But the other thing is, now you need to start looking in your personal life. So, you know, having a team of people in your personal life is incredibly beneficial. Your admin for your business might handle part of your like personal life, managing some of those affairs, but you'd have to pay them more, but that'd be a great place to look. And most things in your personal life can be managed virtually. If not immediately, then it's not that hard to set up systems that would support that. It may not always be the cheapest, but the point is automation and buying back time. If something's super cheap, but it requires more labor and effort, more management, it might actually cost you more, because the opportunity cost of the time that you would buy back by paying a little bit more, if you get several extra hours, but it costs you a little more money, it's worth it to pay the money, because you can then use those extra hours to earn that money back or to do something else. So you start looking, the Yogipreneur will start to look at hiring people in their personal life to handle some of the tasks. So for example, we have the first time that I actually experienced having staff at my place, I had received it as a manifestation. I was in Bali, and I've been journaling for months while living in Phuket that I would get to live in the guest house of a wealthy couple, and they invited me to stay there for free, and they had staff at their house that I was allowed to make use of in whatever stuff I needed. So I've been writing this out for months, and I moved to Bali and all these crazy circumstances happen, and I'm offered a place in this wealthy couple's huge villa to stay in their guest house because they want someone to watch the staff while they go on a vacation. And so they're like, yeah, you know what? We need someone to watch the staff. Can you stay at the place? We've got a guest house for you. You can use everything in the villa and make use of the staff as you see fit, and just keep an eye on them. And I was like, yeah, sure. So I learned a lot of things from that, because I had hired a virtual assistant before, so I had a little bit of experience about what it's like to communicate with people to get them to do the task you want to do in the amount of time and to the desired outcome that you share. And learning how to communicate those things takes effort and practice. And once you get it right, then you've really got a good thing going. So living at this villa for a few weeks gave me an opportunity to really hone in on that. So I taught them how to make breakfast the way I want it. Took a few days and a few tries, but we got there. I started communicating with them the schedule that I wanted, because I had asana practice in the yard for a certain amount of time. At a certain time, then I'd usually go for a swim. And I said, look, once I'm done my swim, once you see that, you start making breakfast, because I'm gonna shower and I want breakfast done by the time I'm done my shower. And then when I'm eating breakfast, I want you guys to clean up the space, right? My guest house. You clean it up so that by the time I'm done my breakfast, my guest house is nice and clean, and I can sit down and do a little bit of work. All right, do you see now? So recently when we lived in Turkey, we did the same thing, right? We just had our son. My wife was exhausted. I was working a lot on building pieces of my business. And we hired a woman to come in and help us out by cleaning up the house, doing meal prep, making meals, doing the dishes, doing the laundry, and managing a lot of the affairs just in the house. Let me tell you, the feeling of being out, right? Like I would go out to the gym, Then I'd work in a cafe for several hours. The feeling of coming home to see my wife resting, my son playing, and having the assistance of this lady. All the dishes are done. There's nice food coming in on the stove being cooked. My wife is resting, the house is clean, and I can sit down and spend some time with her. That's an absolutely incredible feeling. And it was costing me like $180 a month to have this assistance come over a few times a week. So being overseas, obviously it's cheaper, but I'd still pay it at like $500 to $800 a month because it buys back so much time, right? And that is very helpful, because if I get burnt out for a couple of weeks and I could have been building things that make me more money, it's very expensive to have that downtime, right? So I'd rather invest up front in having the assistance as a protection of my energy. And it's beneficial for me and my wife in our relationship because we don't have the buildup of, mess around the house, and the stress is relieved of cooking meals, getting food, getting like ingredients from shops and stuff. We'd have her do that. Doing the meal prep, like all of these things saved us a lot of stress and allowed us to improve our relationship. And it bought back a lot of time for me because the portion of those things that needed to get done that I was doing took time. So I could use that time to exercise, to meditate, to keep working on my business. So it also pays to look at having help in your personal life. And the point being here, you want to buy back time in every area of your life. And once you figure out a way to sell something that requires no presence from you or minimal presence from you, then you can grow it and sell it more and more. And then it makes sense to keep paying for people to help you out with stuff, because the amount of time that they buy back for you allows you to earn more and do more than the cost of paying for them. And you might not be able to fully do it, but I would say something that's been very beneficial for me in this process is when I have extra money, hiring someone on a contract basis for a little bit of help so that I can get that understanding and learn those lessons. That raises my mindset and gains my experience. So that's super important. Don't underestimate that, because it changes your perspective, and it allows you in the future, as opportunities arise, you'll have that mindset of like, oh, how could I get a virtual assistant to do this? What else could I have the domestic help at my house be doing? And your brain just ascends to a new level because you see things, you see more like opportunities. This just keeps going around and around. It keeps benefiting each other in a flywheel effect. The part is you gotta start this flywheel so that it becomes self-sustaining. Okay? So super powerful lessons here. This is the difference in the moves that versus of a yoga teacher who's just doing group classes and has to do everything themselves, and a yogipreneur who focuses on building systems up front, putting the time and money into doing that, and doing it knowing that this is going to pay them back way more times in the future as they keep developing it. That's the mindset you got to have on this entrepreneurship journey. So if you'd like to learn more about elevating your mindset, building systems, raising prices, having high ticket offers, I'd like you to click the link in the description below. I've got a free workshop there that will show you those kinds of things and how to make the next moves in your online yoga business. See you there.